house in Baltimore and having some snowballs or some crab cakes and drinking some beer, going down to the beach. We're with you out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault all weekend long as the Astros take on the Orioles, and the Orioles couldn't be struggling more. The Astros certainly surging in the right direction. This dude does sports radio and sports in lots of different ways with the Houston Rockets as well as the Cougars down there in Houston, where I spent about 10 days at Super Bowl 51 a few months ago. He is Sports MT out on Twitter as well as at sports790.com. We welcome Matt Thomas in to talk. I mean, 5 years ago, Matt, if I would have said I'm going to call you to talk about the Astros, you would have said, what do you want to talk about, last place? Now, this train's getting going right now this summer there. I mean, this is sort of unprecedented waters for the Astros, right?
Well, if you'd have called me 5 years ago, I'd probably hung up on you. And then we'd have had ugly, and you just swore at me, and it would have been a terrible, terrible conversation. But, yeah, it has certainly changed. You remember a couple of years ago, the cover of Sports Illustrated had a photo of George Springer, and it said, Houston Astros are 2017 World Series champions. We all kind of laughed at it. And then the Astros started to hit a bunch of home runs, and Dallas Keuchel became the Cy Young candidate, and Colin McHugh did his thing, and there were some other veteran players, and all of a sudden they wound up winning the wild card, beating the Yankees, and giving Kansas City a run for their money in the playoffs a couple of years ago. Then last year, the team got off to a terrible, terrible start, played a lot better the last 4 months of the season, but at the end of the day just rallied but fell a few games short. This go-around, I'm telling you, Nestor, it's a brand-new baseball team. They've had the best record in baseball for a better part of a month now. They've got a really good lineup top to bottom, and the front end of the rotation has been spectacular. So, frankly, for all the years that I've had to do call-in post-game shows talking about 100-loss teams, I deserve this, and if they win a World Series, I'm getting a ring, and I'm getting my own fire truck.
Just be careful. If you hug Jose Altuve too far, you might smother him. You know what I mean? Like, I love watching the Astros, and I'll tell you what, after the 15 run last year for 3 months going into the season, I gave every guest $1 and said bet it on a team to make the playoffs. And some people took the Cubs kind of wisely. Right. I was an Astros guy. I didn't mean to win the World Series. I meant just a team you know is going to be there in October. I saw the Astros' streak in the right direction. I mean, everything went wrong, and it really was about April and May last year. I mean, since the All-Star break last year, they're pretty good, but that first month and a half last year, much maybe like Toronto this year, I don't know that Toronto's going to get up from that, but Houston had a hard time getting up from that last year.
Well, here's the problem, Nestor. You mentioned the terrible start. I think they were 7-17 in the first month of the year, and then they had one season-long problem. They couldn't beat the Rangers. I don't know if the Yankees are the Orioles' biggest rival or whomever it is in your neck of the woods.
Whoever's throwing at Manny Machado. If you throw at Manny Machado this weekend, you'll become our new biggest enemy.
There you go. Point being is this. The Astros couldn't beat the Rangers. It was embarrassing. So that hung over the team and the lousy starts. You add that all together, and the final week of the season didn't mean much. And that was the sad part. But, they were one of the best baseball teams after, say, May 15th. But the futility against the Rangers hurt, and fortunately for the Astros this year, one of the many signs why things have turned around. First series of the year in Houston, they beat the Rangers 3 games out of 4, and right now they're pretty comfortable lead over them in the American League West.
Yeah, the Orioles have the Yankees and the Red Sox coming up, and I know big doings this week for you guys in Dallas as well. What is it that rivalry never existed? It existed, and look, I'm an old Houston Oiler fan, as John McClain would tell you, and I was Love You Blue when we didn't have a team here for all the years in Baltimore, and there was always a little Dallas envy, and I know that goes on between the cities down there. And hey, San Antonio's involved with it, with the basketball side of things down there, as well as all of those franchises have really had incredible different runs in basketball. But baseball-wise, there's a lot of longing down there, and I guess the Rangers were the better team for a long stretch of time. And, Buck was down there doing his thing for that period of time. But it can't be a rivalry unless they play. It's kind of like the Redskins and the Ravens. They don't get together often enough to not like each other. I'm not shocked that Dallas and Houston are going to hate each other in baseball, and I think it was good for baseball to make that move to sort of encourage a rivalry down there because I think Texas needed that.
Well, here's the thing. The Astros and Rangers have played all those years in interleague baseball for the legendary Silver Boot. I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but there is literally a Silver Boot they play for. And then when the whole talk of the American League moving from one team to the other, and the Rangers were really trying to push this, saying, look, we can't have rivalries with Seattle and Oakland and Los Angeles because they're 3-4 hours away. If you're going to make a team move and you got an ownership change, why don't you make a move with a team that's in Texas to create something? So it certainly has been And look, folks down here in Nestor hate the American League, but when you're winning, as I told my audience for years, you don't care what division they're in as long as they're winning. That has been the only saving grace, is that you do have the Astros and Rangers playing each other 18, 19 times a year. Their Ranger fans come to Houston. We go up to Arlington as long as the weather is decent, which is for one series per year because it's like 185 degrees the rest of the year. We have the roof so that we're comfortable. But, yeah, that has been a nice benefit of having these two teams. The only problem has been since the merger has taken place, and the Astros have gone to the American League, it's been a one-sided rivalry. Hopefully that changes this year.
He is Matt Thomas. He does sports radio down in Houston. Sports MT is the way to find him out on Twitter, as well as at Sports Talk 790 and sports790.com. So this change in the weather here this year from last year, clearly Keuchel's a big part of this. Clearly he's had some problems, and it looks like the Orioles are going to see him on Saturday. I thought in the middle of the week he wouldn't be making this turn, but
right.
I guess all eyes were on this turn, and all eyes will be on him early in the game. I mean, he is the difference maker. If something's really wrong with him, you probably don't have much of a chance this year in the big picture.
Well, here's the thing. Last year, he was average. I mean, and at times below average. He would get in these crooked number innings where you give up 4 or 5 runs. He'd walk a couple of guys. He's on a flamethrower, so you just can't rear back and throw 98 and get guys out. He's a nibbler. He hits corners. He's about 91, 92 on the gun tops. But he was running into these problems, and it just was the atypical Dallas Keuchel. And you kept asking over the course of the year, are you okay health-wise? He's like, yeah, I'm doing fine. He'd pitch every 5th day. He wouldn't miss any turns in rotation. The only time he'd ever have a short tenure on the mound is if he was getting hit hard. And then all of a sudden, early September, he's like, yeah, I haven't felt great. So it was kind of like, well, why didn't you come and be more forthcoming? Could have resolved this. He came in this year, different attitude, different philosophy, and is pitching just as good as he did when he won the American League Cy Young a couple of years ago. And the one thing that is most amazing about him, and obviously the Gold Gloves, he is the best fielding pitcher the Astros have had since Mike Hampton was here about 10, 15 years ago. He saves his own bacon so many times by fielding his position the way that he does. So you add that, plus the walk numbers are down, the strikeouts are down, the velocity is about the same. He has been phenomenal. You put him behind with Lance McCullers, it has been as good of a 1-2 combination as Houston fans have seen in a very long period of time.
Well, you talk about years and eras where there was some promise back in 1980 and, the Jose Cruz and J.R. Richard and Nolan Ryan. But, the Bagwell-Biggio years, that's nice. This new thing with Altuve and now Reddick coming in, Correa, I mean, this feels to me like the Astros are going to be trouble for a number of years down there, that this feels like the beginning of a couple of years of fun. Now, look, I'm a Capitals fan. You're a Rockets guy. You don't win every year. You know what I mean? But to be above the line and to be in the hunt, this does feel like a special year, and certainly putting this thing together, the beginning of maybe writing a couple of these kind of summers.
Well, it's funny because, they're not free spenders. They've spent some money, as you mentioned. Josh Reddick, they went and got Brian McCann away from the Yankees. They get Carlos Beltran in free agency. These are guys that have just really added a nice veteran influence. But you're right, the city of Houston needs a little bit of this. And I don't know how much of your audience gets into the D.C. area, but there's always these comparisons of which cities are starved most for championships. And I would think our 2 metropolitan areas are on the top of the list. And, the Texans still have to figure out their quarterback situation, which is until Deshaun Watson grows up. The Rockets, I don't know if James Harden's Game 6 is going to ever get away from the people's memories until he ultimately wins a championship. But the Astros have been built. This has been a long, slow, painful process. They've used the minor league system. They've spent good money in free agency. They haven't done a whole lot of trading except for the Brian McCann deal. And guys are just growing up. And as long as that front 2 part of the rotation works out all right, the bullpen holds its own. And guys like you mentioned, Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman and Carlos Correa continue to do what they're doing. I think the Astros are in very good shape. The question is going to be, what move will they make at July 31st at the trade deadline? And I think the Astros will be very, very active coming up the next couple of months.
Well, there will be sellers and there will be buyers, and there aren't a whole lot of years the Astros are buyers, right? I mean, so there's no excuse to the fans as to why you don't get another pitcher, that you don't get some depth on your bench, that you don't fill a hole that is perceived or needs in the bullpen. I mean, let's be honest. The teams that think they can win, half the league will think they can win, but there's a handful of teams that are trending toward being 650 teams that really feel like they could put the thing away the way the Cubs tried to last year.
Yeah, I think they'll kick the tires on Quintana. I think they'll kick the tires on Cole. The Astros have a history of going after middle of the rotation guys. They went and got Scott Kazmir a couple of years ago from Oakland. He made a very minimal impact, but he did help the rotation. So I think the Astros can certainly afford it. They're very, very careful about their minor league system because remember, when this Astro ownership group took over with Jim Crane as the owner and Jeff Leno's general manager, it was a wasteland. There was nothing there. So they're very, very protective of that and don't want to give those guys up. Plus a couple other first round. Mark Capella's not worked out. Obviously, Carlos Correa has done a nice job, and Alex Bregman has as well, and some other guys. But I would probably, if I was a betting man, they're going to go get somebody that's not going to be on the top of the radar. Although if they go get Garrett Cole, and if he keeps pitching the way that he is, you talk about an impactful 1-2-3 mix for the Astros come October. And as you know, that's really all you need if you're going to make a pretty decent run in October to go in a World Series.
Well, some would say you could use 6 relievers to do that. But
well, you know what, there are some guys. Brad Peacock has been really good. He's just kind of been a, what I like to call sometimes a 4A pitcher. He's been really good. This Chris Davinsky is a guy. I don't know if you know much about him. He was a part of a throwaway trade with Brett Myers to Chicago many moons ago. He has been invaluable as not only a late inning guy, a high leverage guy, but he can also give you 2/3 of an inning if you need to as well. It's a nice makeup. Ken Giles, the former Philadelphia Philly closer, has been good, not great here, so he makes Coffee a little bit nervous around here sometimes. But there's very few holes on this roster, and I haven't said that probably since the Astros were, competing for a World Series in 2005, and before that, probably their best ever team back in 1998 when Randy Johnson was made the trade before the deadline.
Matt Thomas joining us here from Sports Talk 790 down in Houston. Of course, the Orioles down there for 3 games before heading back here. I thought they were going to New York, but they're actually playing in Baltimore. I thought, who does a 3-game road trip to Texas besides me and my wife? But the Orioles are doing that this weekend to see the Astros. Matt, I'd be remiss if I don't let you talk a little bit about the Rockets. I mean, given what you do on the radio side and the PA side of where they are, and then maybe a little bit about LeBron and a little bit about Golden State and a little bit about this time off because you're certainly an NBA expert above and beyond being a Houston guy.
Yeah, I had the great pleasure of doing the arena announcing at home this year. I did the radio play-by-play on the road, and it's still, honestly, Nestor, taking me a while, and certainly will be Houston fans a while, to get over the San Antonio series. Game 6 was meant for, no Tony Parker, no Kawhi Leonard. Rockets are at home. It's a close series. Game 5 went to overtime. And then James Harden had probably one of his worst performances, maybe it's safe to say the worst performance he ever had as a Houston Rocket. And we're all still trying to figure out what happened. And I don't know if it was because San Antonio just puts incredible defensive pressure on you or James wasn't feeling right or hurt. But the way things flamed out, losing at home by 39 points, and that's too bad because I've gotten to know James traveling with the team and appreciated all the things that he did. And believe you me, fought with all media all around the country about why he deserved the MVP vote, perhaps more so than Russell Westbrook. But it's one of those situations that one terrible game had ruined 85 other really good games that James Harden has. And so until this team can overcome how Game 6 ended last year and win a couple of series and go even deeper in the playoffs than they did this past season, I think a lot of folks are going to be very curious to see what the long-term impact of James Harden as a superstar player comes postseason. And that's not fair because he's been really good, but man, the sting is still very, very raw here in Houston with how things ended for the Rockets against San Antonio.
It's funny for me on the outside. The Wizards lost in kind of an embarrassing fashion in Game 7 as well, sort of getting pushed around in the fourth quarter, and their walls didn't show up at that particular point, and he'll have to live with that as well. But I still look at it and say, wasn't it always going to be Golden State and LeBron anyway, and we're going to figure out, and I don't think anybody really knows how this is going to work, right? I mean, this is a real, honest-to-God rivalry, mano-a-mano. These are the 2 best teams. No one can really question that, especially, the way the San Antonios wind up getting dispatched, despite the injury and whatnot. But these are the best teams, and they have been from the beginning. And I think that's one of the problems of the NBA's appeal is that there are no Nashville Predators there. There are no, Kansas City Royals coming in as a wild card, and that doesn't exist in the NBA. And I don't know if that's a tribute to the league or whether it's a detriment. But the next 2 weeks it'll be a tribute.
It depends on the day of the week you want to talk about the NBA. I mean, you and I grew up around the time the Celtics and Lakers dominated in the 80s, and didn't mean we didn't love basketball. Didn't mean we didn't appreciate Dominique Wilkins doing his thing or a young Michael Jordan, but the reality is, I think most fans that just give a little bit about the NBA probably had Golden State and Cleveland. I had, obviously, a vested interest in seeing the Rockets go further. In fact, I always thought if the Rockets could overcome the Spurs, they would have a better chance of maybe giving Golden State a run for its money in the Western Conference because of the fact that the Rockets and Golden State play the same style of basketball.
Well, we thought the same thing here, right, with the Wizards. Right?
Yeah.
If the Wizards just would have beaten Boston, they would have given LeBron hell. Maybe. I don't know, but I would have loved to have found out. So would you, right?
Well, I'm looking forward to maybe the Rockets and the Wizards in the NBA Finals next year, so I can spend quality time at the Pentagon Mall because I love that place.
Well, you do
get me being travel biased.
Hey, man, you get on and off the airplanes with these basketball teams, and I know you do some Cougars football down there as well. Matt Thomas, he is Sports MT out on Twitter, and of course at Sports Talk 790. Astros going to win the World Series this year. I mean, is that like a flag we're starting to begin to believe in a little bit this summer?
Since it's been so long since they've been in the postseason, I mean, a deep run, obviously a couple of years ago making to the second round against the Royals, well, sure, why not?
Sure.
Again, I hate to repeat myself, but I think it's all going to come down to what this team does at the trade deadline. I think they still need, Nestor, one legitimate pitcher to really make a deep run because 3, 4, 5, look, Charlie Morton, the former Philly and Braves, done okay for them. 4 and 5 have been extremely iffy. Not that you rely on a lot of that, but you're also asking for Keuchel, who's missed a little bit of time this year, a lot last year, and Lance McCullers, who has not finished an entire season, to be there for you in October. And, you just want to have as many insurance policies as possible. That's why I think the Astros, it depends on what they do before the trade deadline, that I can absolutely, without a doubt, say this is a World Series team. But, man, they are on the short list right now, that's for sure.
Hey, man, appreciate the time. I know you get up early every morning and do sports radio down there in Houston. Thanks for taking a little time. Enjoy our little Oriole visit down there this weekend. Save me a Starburst, old throwback 1980 Jose Cruz pullover, okay?
Man, I feel like I'm talking to a Houston radio guy. Do you want to come? You come and take my job? What's going on with this?
Oh, I'm available beginning next Thursday morning, but not before then. It's my wife's birthday week, so
call anytime.
You got it. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you. There he goes, Matt Thomas, Sports MT. You can also follow his work out on Twitter as well as at sports790.com. You can find me out in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world, including Houston and, the Woodlands and Dallas and San Antonio. I almost got off a plane in Midland, Texas to see Robert Plant last year in Stoney Case's hometown of Odessa, Texas, and the Friday Night Lights. But I'll be deep in the heart of Texas this weekend. I'm going down to see U2 in Dallas on Friday with my wife. It is her birthday week, so we're going to treat ourselves, not cheat ourselves or something like that. So, we're going to have fun, probably gain weight, drink craft beers, who knows. You can find me all weekend and all the time at Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. And you can always email me, nasty@WNST.net. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.